I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave. Yeah, yeah. That is what I heard them say. Way back in the day, I'll be buried in my grave before I become a slave. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it seems like since that day, yeah, we have sorely changed. Whoa. Hey, hey. Whoa, oh, 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 oh. Whoa, oh, 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 oh,
And now, live from beautiful Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, you're watching My Fellow Americans with your host, Spike Cohen.
Hey everyone, welcome to My Fellow Americans. I am literally Spike Cohen. I am still trying to figure out how to use this new equipment I have. I would like to, before I get started, as always, I want to thank Matt and Mohammed at Muddy Waters Media for giving me this opportunity to have this show and share it with you guys. I would like to thank Kroger for my Kroger flavored water that I drink on this and every episode of My Fellow Americans. Oh, delicious. I would like to, the intro and outro music that I use on this, and so far, anyway, every episode of My Fellow Americans is from my friend Joe Davi. Please look for him. That's Jodavi. Please look for him on Facebook, SoundCloud. He's on the Bandcamp. If you're into the Bandcamp, you can go on the Bandcamp, download everything he has, and pay for it. Don't rip off his stuff. Pay for everything. Shout out to Tehran Turks' mom and him. This episode is also brought to you by Walgreens brand ice packs, which I will be using this entire episode. I blew my back out over the weekend, carrying thousands of pounds of stuff. I'm very strong. And I blew my back out, and so I have to 30 minutes on, 30 minutes off with the ice pack. So if someone can occasionally just comment if I've gone past 30 minutes without removing my ice pack, I would really appreciate that. That'd be a big help for me. And also, if I randomly wince at some point or like that, that's not because of my guest. My guest is amazing, has absolutely nothing to do with him. It is because of my back. Which again, I'm very, very strong. I'm a strong man, but even very incredibly strong people like myself have limitations, and I reached it over the weekend. I do have new equipment. I'm super excited. I actually look like I'm someone who should be doing this finally. I've got a new whatever this is thing on my ears, headset. I've got this really awesome the webcam. I've also got a microphone, a Blue Yeti microphone, fancy, and I have a pop filter. I have no idea if that's on right, but I hope that it is filtering my plosives. If my plosives are hopefully being filtered, and I have a mic arm. Big fancy stuff. This is fancy Jew time that we're doing now on this show, and so I'm really excited about it. I can't wait. This has been a guest I've really wanted to have for a while. My guest tonight actually is a blockchain and cryptocurrency expert. He's been involved in this space, in the blockchain crypto world, pretty much from the beginning, since 2010. And he has a new book out that is called Blockchain Project Renaissance. And it is very, very good book. I just finished reading it, and super exciting. We're going to talk about all of that. And so without any further ado, very excited to have this man on tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming R.L. Bryer.
Spike, thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for joining me. I've been really excited to have this. I've been watching your videos for as long as we've been Facebook friends, at least for, I guess, a couple, 2-3 weeks now, or month or so now. I've been watching all your episodes. It's very, very enlightening stuff about blockchain.
Yeah, I've been a pretty big advocate for blockchain tech since I found Bitcoin. So I decided it was time to start making my own daily vlogs to to help educate the people that are just getting in and just keep everybody, up to date on what's going on in the community.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, so even before reading your book, I was a big believer in blockchain. I pretty much since I first, I think the first time I heard of Bitcoin was like 2013, 2014. And then I read more about blockchain and I'm like, this is the future. Like it's, it's both, it's decentralized, but it's on something that everyone, it's on ledgers that everyone can see. And I'll let you explain it far better than I obviously can. But, it was very, I could see how this was going to, how the proof of work and proof of scope and all, proof of stake and all of that stuff, how that was going to change everything. And then after reading your book, that just, that just sort of, that kind of cemented it for me. But, I really think it's going to reshape civilization for the good. Your book is, I'm going to plug it as much as possible. Blockchain Project Renaissance. Very, very, very informative book. It even has a breakdown of the different terms that are used, which is very helpful because when I was learning about blockchain, everyone is already very heavy in using terminology. And so I would, I'd have to Google each term and figure it out. So yours even breaks all that down. It's really a great read for people at any level of familiarity who want to learn more about, blockchain and crypto.
The plugs are welcome. I really appreciate it. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And my screen just decided it didn't want to show me. Oh, there we go. All right. Anyway, before we go into any details, would you mind just kind of giving the folks out there and me a brief explanation of what blockchain is for the listeners that are out there that have absolutely no clue what we're talking about?
Yeah, the blockchain itself, it's everybody tries to make it pretty like more complicated thing than it really needs to be.
Right.
It's just a decentralized ledger, really. Anytime I would send anything or anybody would send Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency that runs on a blockchain, it's actually recorded on the ledger, and that's really what the blockchain is. So I try to explain it like as like a web. If you were to look, it's actually illustrated like that on the cover of my book, like a spider web or something. And then from that is like the transactions, which kind of create the web of the ledger. So
right.
It's just a way to send money or send Bitcoin or Litecoin or whatever. Like I said, cryptocurrency, whichever application you're using through a decentralized platform.
Right, and it's not just for probably the most famous part of blockchain is cryptocurrency, but it's more than just that. It's that same application, but for apps and for pretty much anything, right? Like you can anything that needs a trust, a trust-based system is good for blockchain.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be a lot more done in the future on blockchain with different blockchains. They all have a different utility, at least the ones that provide some utility. But right now, most of them are trying to begin with money because, everybody loves money. So it's
right, of course, yeah.
It was just the natural, and it fits the desire of what people, we need real money. We needed sound money.
Oh, absolutely.
So this is like, it was just the first application. It just made sense to start with this.
Right. Well, and the thing is, with any new thing, the first thing anyone thinks is, how am I going to make money from it? Like how will I be paid, doing this type of thing? So that does make sense. By the way, if you're watching out there and you have any questions for my guest, for RL, feel free to comment. Also, if you have any opinions about it, feel free to comment those, and we will look at those and tell you if you are right or wrong. That is a big part of the show, is correcting people. I try to correct strangers whenever possible. Anyway, so what got you into block? What was it that sort of got you interested in and involved in blockchain in the first place?
I actually remember the first conversation I had about Bitcoin and blockchain. I was still in college at Ohio State, and I was talking to a friend of mine. He was, at the time, I think he was sleeping on my futon or something. And I came home that day from class, and we have a debate about who said it first, but he says I said it first, and I thought he had told me first about it, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, we had this conversation about Bitcoin at that point, and whether or not this was a feasible thing to actually work. And that was about 2009-ish or 10. It was like really in the infancy of it.
Okay.
And we both kind of just gave it a little bit of whatever, it could work, it might, at that point it was a couple pennies or something, I think. So
Right.
and then a few years passed, and I got really into the liberty movement. I started reading. Of course, Ron Paul, the great educator that he is, led Austrian School of Economics, and I started reading Murray Roth, Dawning Today. But that led me into just really, I mean, economics is everything around us, so that really got me interested in money.
Right.
And from there, I sort of went back to Bitcoin, and how are we going to solve this problem? Because at that point, it was sort of this problem of money. At that point, it was sort of a depressing time in the libertarian community.
Yeah.
Not a lot of promise, I guess you could say.
At all. Our greatest hope was Gary Johnson. So that was the peak. That was a low point. And meanwhile, I'm Facebook friends with Gary Johnson, so I probably shouldn't blast him in case he ends up on here. But in fact, he should. Gary, if you're listening, please comment and tell us why what I said was wrong, and we can discuss that. But yeah, no, absolutely, that was definitely a fun time. I like in your book, it talks about how entrepreneurs and capitalists are the real benefactors of society, and that they're the ones that are bearing the risk and cost of their own on their own to make positive innovations, and that improve our lives, and that it's that profit motive that drives people to make those kinds of innovations. And you talk about how Satoshi Nakamoto, if I'm pronouncing that right, who is for those who don't know, he is the anonymous person who created the concept for Bitcoin. That he's one of the world's greatest benefactors for introducing Bitcoin and basically for introducing cryptocurrency. My question for you, how would you say that blockchain and more specifically cryptocurrency is going to lead to a society that's, in your book you say it leads to a society that is based on serving humanity? Yeah,
well, the way I see it after studying economics, it's pretty much consumed my life the last probably 7 years.
Right.
Is that we can't really have the nexus of capitalism is voluntary exchange,
right?
And you can't have voluntary exchange if you don't have money that isn't being distributed by some sort of intermediary, World Bank or nation state bank or whatever you want to say,
right.
National currency. So and then you have to look at that as a way, the Bitcoin blockchain especially, as a way, because of the first mover advantage, of a way to get production back to maybe, I think this is like going to be the next big, you want to call it industrial revolution, but some sort of revolution to create more production again, like
right.
Bring production back to maybe levels which help humanity and serve humanity, is what I was trying to get across in the book.
Right. And I like how you explained cryptocurrency. Really, obviously the technology behind blockchain is new, but the concept behind cryptocurrency is really just a return to the standard for money since we've been using anything as a medium for exchange. And the real money standard obviously has started with gold. And that was based on, the value was determined essentially by global markets. It was based on the subjective value that had been determined, based on what people thought it was worth, rather than by, individual, nation states that are saying, one of our dollars is worth exactly this much, and sort of kind of imposing that on the people that are being forced through taxation to use their currency. This is really a return to this sort of not globalism, but globalization of the concept of what money's worth. That Bitcoin, one of the things that people don't like about Bitcoin is how volatile the value is right now, which is because it's still a new thing and there's money coming into and out of it a lot. But it's that freedom that it has that's really a return to the original standard for money, which is that it's the consumer and the provider that decide what money's worth, not some top-down governmental central planning that decides that.
Precisely. If you look at any nation throughout history, the shelf life of a national currency is less than 50 years typically. So right. That's like the average. So it's pretty obvious that nations cannot be trusted to coin, or it's not really a good term because there's no backing to the money we use today.
Right. They're not coining
it's
it
all
anymore. They're just
promissory
printing
notes.
it. Yeah.
Exactly. So them had the ability of a central banker and central planners to debase over time is pretty much it's the rule. Basically, it's going to happen over time. They will debase the currency, and I think since the early 1900s, we've seen like 98% of the value of the dollar just completely vanish.
Right.
But people don't realize that because it happens it's incremental. So over time that happens, but it really destroys the society at the end.
Well, it does, and the thing is, it's like we say nothing's certain except death and taxes. At this point, it's death, taxes, and inflation, and so many people don't even realize, if you ask the average person what is causing inflation, and they'll say things like, oh, greed, corporate greed, or, oh, I don't know, that's just the way it is, or I had one person who said, well, as more people are making money, it just naturally makes the cost of things go up. And it was like, no, it's not that they're making money. That's not the problem. The problem is that there is more money. They're printing ever larger amounts of money. And not for any societal benefit, solely so that they can have more money to spend on, government, wars and entitlements and, infrastructure and whatever else. They're not, it's not a sound money policy. It's just, okay, we need $1 billion more of our dollars. Okay, we need 10 billion more of our dollars. Okay, we'll print out 10 billion more and use those. And that's not sound, and it's what causes inflation, because as there's more, money out if you've created more supply of something without increasing its value, you've reduced the overall value of each of those individual units, and that's what inflation is.
Yeah, it should be so elementary to everyone, but the education system hasn't done us too much justice either in the last 100 years. Like you said, just adding more zeros in a computer or more pieces of fiat into the supply doesn't create value in itself. It has to be some sort of network or some sort of actual tangible item backing that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Just not fiat literally means by decree. So it's just money by decree. So that's just Latin, a little Latin there. Right. And people really don't even know what that means. Let alone most people don't really understand fiat. They really don't understand what money is.
No, they don't.
Most elementary,
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like, and this is sort of this is probably the softest softball question that I'm going to ask you today. What does a world look like where states aren't, let's say, crypto becomes the standard, and, what does that world look like where states aren't going to be able to manipulate wealth and manipulate what's that going to look like for treasuries and for militaries and things? How is that going to look?
Well, that's cool. I think that was sort of the goal in the beginning. Most of the people that got in the early days were libertarians and anarcho-capitalists. So I think that was we aren't the majority we used to be in this space, but it's actually probably for the better. It might be a sign that we're winning. Right. I think it'll be a good thing. I'm an anti-war guy, pro free market. I think that a world without government being able to spend almost as much as they want on war would be a great place to be. So exactly. hopefully we achieve that.
Yeah, that's my hope as well. That's what I liked about it. I like the idea of investing that in something that most people weren't involved in, and as it got more adopted, it would gain in value. But the bigger overarching thing was, if this really catches on, there's not, in my mind, and we'll talk about that more, but it's really hard to put that genie back in. Once you've opened Pandora's box, it's really hard you can't really close that again. And why would someone want a US dollar or a euro or a renminbi or whatever the Chinese currencies go? Why would you want that when you know that it's just paper that's backed up by a government that's decreasingly relevant, when you can have something that actually has a value based on people, on a perceived actual value, not a handful of politicians writing on a sheet of paper that it's worth this. So and in fact, I wanted to talk about specifically that with a medium for exchange versus a store of value. Before reading your book, I had always believed that crypto was only a medium for exchange, but in your book, you present a pretty strong case that it's also a store of value. That the actual cryptocurrency is a store of value in addition to a medium of exchange. If you can just talk to me real quick about the differences between, a medium for exchange and a store of value, and why you believe that crypto is both of those things.
Well, it's hard for people to understand that it could be both, and because it's such an emerging thing now.
Right.
I do think Bitcoin and some of the other ones will emerge as very good stores of value throughout time. They already are. I think many consider them to be a good store of value. Now, There is a lot of volatility in cryptocurrencies today, but even the volatility has decreased over time. So I think we'll see less volatility over time, and people will start to view it more as a store of value, Bitcoin specifically. So I think there will be better cryptocurrencies possibly to use as a medium of exchange. I don't know if that'll be Litecoin. I'm a pretty big proponent of Litecoin. That's one of my favorite cryptocurrencies personally.
Right.
But as far as store of value, I think that I think Bitcoin might be the best store of value other than gold right now. So I think it will emerge as a better store of value in the future. But the people who were in the community who have been here for a while are starting to really see that it is the store of value that we thought it could be.
And is that just because as it becomes more widely adopted and more people are in the space and it gains value because of that as sort of a side effect of that is that it's a good store of value? Is that sort of like what you mean by that?
Yeah, that's my argument. I think exactly that over time, the network gains more and more people will be using it as a medium of exchange. So it all kind of works symbiotically.
Right.
And it's like nothing like we've ever seen before. So it's gonna unravel over time. Now we could be sitting here in 10 years and maybe Bitcoin won't even exist. But I don't foresee that. I don't foresee that. But,
I just winced, by the way, and that had nothing to do with my back. But go ahead.
Yeah, I don't foresee that happening. It's Bitcoin's been running for 9 years now, over 9 years, and it's never stopped one time, and it's only become more and more valuable. I don't know what the exact number is, but if you look back, I mean, in the earliest days, a Bitcoin was a penny or whatever, a fraction of a penny.
Oh, yeah, it was a fraction of a penny, yeah.
I don't know what the price is today. It was like $8,300 or something, I think, earlier today. So it's gaining over 1% a day, pretty much over that time frame. So
if you averaged it out over that whole time, it would be like 1% a day. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Which is nice. I think that's a good gain.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty good store of value in comparison to fiat, which is like we said, since the early 1900s lost about 98% of its value.
Yeah.
So holding your money in dollars isn't the safe bet that people think it is.
It isn't. I mean, I've done a long time ago. I did some Forex, and you're basically ultimately Forex. You're deciding which currencies are going to be devalued the slowest at a given time, right? Like it's sort of like this trying to catch a bunch of falling knives and trying to catch the falling knife by the one that you're not going to catch it by the blade, you're going to catch it by the handle, and that's not fun because anyone who's ever caught a falling knife, at least half the time that goes poorly. So none of them there aren't any currencies I know of that are expected to gain in value. They will continuously lose value. They may gain in value relative to another currency because that one is diminishing even faster than this one, but that's not really gaining value. That's just losing less value. So you've actually presented it, like I said, it's a very strong case. I do tend to now lean more towards saying that as it becomes more adopted, it's definitely going to be a store of value. I had talked about in your book, you have a lot of terms. One of the terms that anyone who's read about blockchain or crypto, one of the terms you may have come across is to the moon. Which is, that cryptocurrency, it's the idea that, cryptocurrency is eventually going to be worth, a Bitcoin is going to be worth $1 million. And I guess basically the concept of to the moon is that that'll be the point when, cryptocurrency dwarfs all other currencies and it becomes the standard for everything. And all of the people that invested in it when it was worth less than, $50,000 per Bitcoin will be, rich and all of that. I actually, and I bought some of the hype last year. I still am a huge believer in it based on my research. And then the parabolic growth that happened over the starting in the summer and going through towards the end of the year of last year, I really thought To the Moon was happening. And I'm like, it's happening. The Ron Paul graphic, it's happening. That was me. If you put me on my face on the Ron Paul thing.
That's the best GIF ever.
Yeah, no, and it was me. I was that person. And, when it went over 9,000, I had, Vegeta crushing his thing and saying it's over 9,000. Like I was in, and I still believe that. But I guess obviously To the Moon didn't happen. Then we got up to, I think, just over 20,000 per Bitcoin. And then it went down to, I think, back down to like 5,000. Like you said, now we're at like just over 8,000 now. Was that missed expectation? Was that a false start? Were people experiencing too much too soon? Or is this just sort of a natural cycle that happens in crypto?
Exactly. I think it's sort of a cyclical thing. Okay. We've seen this sort of thing over time in the market. We've probably had 10 of these now, but they weren't gaining as much of attention earlier on. Right. It would be like it would go to $30 and then it would go back down or whatever. But now when you're talking about $20,000, everybody CNBC starts covering it.
Exactly.
You get more hype. But I do think there will be a trip to the moon. I don't know what that number will be. I honestly do think that we could, if you crunch the numbers and you do the math, and you start looking at over a percent a day for 9 years, at some point it is going to reach $1 million. So I think, and there's only 21, so there's a finite supply. That's
there's
another
21 million.
Thing. Yeah, 21 million Bitcoin will be mined, and right now there's about 17 million something. I'm not sure the exact number.
Right.
So I do think the finite supply and the properties that it have will lend a good chance. There will be a good chance that it will. I don't like to exactly say what number, but I do think, I know a lot of people have heard John McAfee's $1 million prediction, and everybody kind of likes to talk about that. So I don't think he's wrong on this. I think we will see $1 million Bitcoin someday.
I agree, and I hope for his sake, if for nothing else, that he's right. For those who don't know the John McAfee prediction, it's that, was it 500,000 or $1 million?
It was $1 million.
Okay, so he said, go ahead.
Yeah, he said. I think John said by 2020 though. So
he has some time. Yeah. He said. So basically, he said if by 2020, Bitcoin isn't worth $1 million per Bitcoin, he would. And he used much more colorful terms than I'll use on this family-friendly program. But he basically said he would eat his own genitals. And so obviously, for many reasons, I want him to be right. For my own personal portfolio, I'd like him to be right. For what that would mean for society, I want that to be right. And for John and his situation down there, I also hope that he's right, because that would be just insult and injury at the same time. So I hope we're all right here.
He's a master marketer.
He is. If nothing else, he is that. I'm not a believer in. I don't know where you are on this. I'm not a believer that we have that there's an electoral path, a political path to achieving a stateless society. I would vote for him just because why not? I would definitely, if he became any party's nominee, if he ended up on my ballot. I would vote for him, and I'd stop drawing my my dead dog Zeus on the ballot in crayon. So each cryptocurrency is as you just said, a fixed supply. With Bitcoin, it's like 21 million or 20 point something 20 point something million, and each cryptocurrency, from the beginning says we're only going to make this many. Every time there's an ICO or a new coin being created, they say right off the bat, this is the number, that they're ever going to be. That is obviously deflationary in nature, because when you only have a fixed amount of something, if it catches on, it's just going to increase in value because the value will increase and the demand will increase, the supply will stay the same, the value will, go through the roof. So that makes sense. But one thing I noticed, and this was especially before Facebook kind of clamped down on the ICOs, there was a new coin being introduced every 10 seconds. And so that really something that spoke to me. Yes, there's only a fixed number of coins, per cryptocurrency, but there's also an endless number of cryptocurrencies that can be created. You can literally, and in fact, Bitcoin Cash is basically a clone of Bitcoin that they then increased, they changed some things on it to, they say, make it more competitive. What do you believe will prevent the fact that endless cryptos can be created from becoming the new form of quantitative easing where there's just endless currency being made?
Well, there are a few cryptos that don't have a fixed supply. Like Ethereum isn't fixed yet.
Oh, okay.
I don't think EOS and Steam have a fixed supply. Those are a couple of other ones I'm interested in.
Oh.
But Bitcoin and Litecoin, they do have a fixed supply.
Right.
Litecoin's 84 million. Like we touched on.
Right.
Bitcoin's about 21 million. But the difference is the reason that those coins won't, or those cryptocurrencies won't really hurt or devalue or debase the others, in my opinion, is the network is really where you're getting a lot of the backing in these projects. So just because Joe Smo creates an ICO, that's another thing. The Bitcoin and all of these blockchains are pretty much open source. So a lot of people like you or I could create our own coin tonight.
Exactly.
And like you said, yeah. And that in itself doesn't have any value. It's the network, the hash rate, and all of that, which the individuals are using to mine the cryptocurrencies. It's the actual network that is creating the value. Is the argument. So just coming up with a cryptocurrency isn't, and nobody using it isn't going to really hurt the crypto community, in my opinion. Other than what we saw in that time was that money could have been going into good projects and they went into scams like BitConnect.
Right.
I touch on that. Yeah, I touch on that in the book a little bit about how you got to do your due diligence and not get into projects that are just look at who the team is and try to do as much research on the actual currency before you get into it.
Yeah, and that was good. That was another thing you touched on where you said, specific things to look for. What does their white paper look like? What kind of names are behind it? Are these MIT engineering people, or is it a guy who all you have to do is Google his name and he's got 15 different scams he's run over the years?
Yeah.
Is this a legit thing? And I guess the real difference and hearing you answer kind of helped me flesh this out a little bit. A currency is used. A fiat currency is used at the end of the day when you boil it down to why it's being used is because someone will come to your house and cage you if you don't, right? Like if the reason that we even have taxation is to legitimize, is to basically make it so the only way you can pay the IRS is in dollars. They can take all your stuff, but if you actually want to quote unquote voluntarily pay them, it's in US dollars. And so the whole point of taxation is to have people using this currency because that gives it the quote unquote legitimacy for them to then print out endless reams of it and use it to spend on, war and welfare and whatever else they want to spend it on. And, protecting poppy fields in Afghanistan and all of that. And so it's essentially, it's what little value it has, which is ever diminishing, is only the only reason anyone's even using it is because they have to. Whereas in the crypto sphere, no one's making you use this. So if someone said, if I go, hey, I'm Spike Cohen and I just copied Bitcoin and I call it Spike Coin, come and use my Spike Coin. And everyone's like, well, what's your background and what's your white paper? And I'm like, Spike Coin. And no one, no one decides to use it, and no one decides to mine it, and no one decides to, like you said, develop apps on it or develop, develop things or to, like right now with Bitcoin, they're doing the Lightning Network and all this stuff. No one's going to bother creating a Lightning Network for Spike Coin, right? So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so
I actually was looking at one cryptocurrency in particular. I hate to call anybody out, but IOTA was one of them, and there was a kind of a fervor behind that. And I was like, all right, I'm going to look at this.
Right.
And I started looking at it, and like, there's like, I think there were like grammatical errors in the white paper. And it's like,
is good coin.
Yeah, you have to generate your own seed just to get into your wallet to get to your coin. It's like the average person is never going to be able to use that, you know?
Exactly.
So it's like, you have to make sure that the ones you're getting aren't just, word of mouth, like, hey, get into Spike Coin.
Or Pack Coin, which I put $200 in and is now worth, I think, 12 cents or something. Yeah, that was a fever one. Most of my crypto investments have been in things that I fleshed out fairly well. Pack Coin was one that someone, I was in a Facebook group and someone brought it up, and they're like, look at the trajectory on this thing. And I looked, and it was like, it had gained, 80,000% in 2 weeks or some ridiculous thing. And I'm like, Pack Coin. And I didn't even look into it. I didn't read anything about it. If I had known that they were printing 600 trillion of them or whatever stupid thing or what, like if I had spent as much time researching it as I've spent in this moment talking about how I should have researched it, I would not have invested. And I put in like, I don't know, $150, $200 worth of I think Ethereum or whatever that I put in, and I signed up for a Cryptopia account so I could get it. And like literally as soon as I bought it, it just started dropping, and I'm like, oh, it's okay. This is a correction now. It's like 20 cents now. So if you're out there, folks, I've got 20 cents worth of Pack Coin that I think is really going to take off soon. If anyone wants it, I'll sell it for 30 cents.
That's another. I would advise people to stay away. Just real quick, I would advise people to stay away from like lending platforms as well. Like people promising you a return daily. They're like BitConnect.
They
were promising people a daily return. That's like 100% red flag scam. So just don't get into anybody that's promising you a specific number. I mentioned that you might get 1% a day out of Bitcoin, and it has happened.
It has historically,
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get that in the next 10 years. That's just what history has said. These people that go out and promise you something, that's just like snake oil or whatever, Well,
it's a Ponzi scheme. It is the original Ponzi scheme. Give me money and I'll give you VIG on it, basically. I'll give you a percentage back on it. Mm-hmm. And that works so long as they continue to get more people giving them money. They can pay back the original investors. And so long as the coin is gaining in value, awesome. When Bitcoin was, doubling every couple weeks, they can keep doing that. As soon as it even flattens out or is only growing slowly, that whole thing falls apart. I saw that coming a mile away. I had a few people that BitConnect, and then there was another one where you bought packets. And the more I read, I'm like, this works because it's gone up 500% this month. That's why they can do this. Like, this is not going to work in a flat market or even a steadily growing one. It's obviously a Ponzi scheme. And BitConnect was the one where they're like, oh, we have a special bot that is trading at optimal rates. And there were some people on YouTube that were like, show us the source. Like, if there's a special bot, we don't have to copy it. Show us a screen grab of it or whatever. And they wouldn't. And I'm like, there's not a shot.
The most ludicrous thing about that too was that like I'm on the computer a lot looking at this stuff, and almost every YouTube video you would play before and after, if you don't have an ad blocker up and you actually see the videos, it was BitConnect. It was like, so don't just take YouTube or anybody else, even if they're letting them run the ads on there. I mean, there could be another one coming up. You never know. So just make sure I would say look at the top 10 of the market cap around there, and then start learning more and more about maybe getting into like newer projects.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree, and I'm invested in a few, of the altcoins that are a little further off the top 10 or top 20, but they were ones that I actually spent some time looking into, as opposed to just my Pack Coin investment. So we won't replicate Pack Coin in the future, So another thing you talked about was, actually I've talked about is, I talk about the fact that you really can't hack the blockchain, or at least not effectively. I think I read an article once that said if some foreign government wanted to use all their resources to, hack Bitcoin, they would have to use, several days worth of world energy output to be able to hack it enough to buy like a chaise lounge on Overstock or something like that. Like, I mean, it's just the amount of resources you would have to put into hacking it would, by its very nature of how blockchain works, it's cost inefficient to ever do it. And when I try to explain that to people, they point out, they'll say, "Oh, but what about when this exchange got hacked, or what about when this guy's wallet got stolen?" And they give those examples. If you can kind of explain to our viewers the difference between hacking my exchange or my account or, my wallet, and hacking the entire Bitcoin, blockchain infrastructure, and why that's not really possible.
Yeah, the difference is pretty simple to understand. Though, like hacking the Bitcoin blockchain, as you said, would take an individual or a nation state's like all of their resources,
right,
and then
right.
even if you were able to fool the network, that would only last for like a couple minutes maybe,
right.
And then everyone would be like, "All right, buddy, we know that you're not really like doing what you're supposed to be doing."
Right.
So, but you can there have been examples where people have lost their cryptocurrency because they're trusting a third party entity,
right.
And that's sort of like that's a very good thing to touch on because the entire point of this is not to rely on anyone else and no other intermediaries or anybody else to take control of your money. That you should be controlling it yourself. So not relying on someone to hold onto your wallet, onto your cryptocurrency wallet is the big difference, or leaving it on an exchange that has a central point of attack.
Right. Yeah, and the example I use is that you can hack my bank account, or you can hack my eBay account or whatever, if you're able to do an attack to get access to my account. But that's different from hacking the entire U.S. financial system. That's the level of resources that would be used for that are completely different. So it's, and blockchain's even harder to hack than that. This was something that interested me. You had mentioned that there is a risk, and this was something I didn't really think there was that was possible. But you had mentioned that there's a risk that blockchain could end up being centralized by oligarchs. You had said oligarchs and democratic majorities. You had said that there's really two paths for blockchain and cryptocurrency. One is that it continues to be this decentralized thing that can't be controlled by any bad actors, and that it leads to this voluntary society, and that the other alternative is that it ends up becoming centralized by oligarchs, democratic majorities, nation states, whatever. I've had a hard time wrapping my head around that, because how the very nature of blockchain seems to me to kind of eliminate that risk. How could blockchain become centralized?
Well, we're already starting to see like particular governments that want in on blockchain every day. Just this week, one of the articles was South Korea, I believe it was. They're working to use blockchain for telecommunications. They're going to try to do something with that over there. So
okay.
it's not that Bitcoin would become centralized for the democratic majority or nation states to use against us. Excuse me, but more or less that if we don't make the right choice and stay in decentralized projects, that there could be that chance or opportunity for them to use it against us. It's some and just create digital fiat, for example.
Oh, okay. So you're not saying that the entire blockchain can be...
No.
Okay. You're saying they can basically use blockchain as a way to try to update their way of robbing us, pretty much.
Precisely, and that's definitely going to happen. I think there's already groups in every country working on that.
Oh, well, I mean, here's the thing. Paperless, we're almost at a paperless money society. I keep I don't know, $40 on me in case, a credit card doesn't work, or, I can't get to an ATM or whatever. But I can't tell you the last time I spent money. It's literally, actually, that's not true. A few weeks ago, my wife and I we do Latin, salsa dancing, and we went out to a place, and it was easier to just give them $5 for, to pay for the soda or whatever than to, get out a credit card. But I mean, for anything major, I'm either using, credit cards or, banking transactions. I haven't really spent my crypto yet. I'm kind of a Scrooge McDuck with my crypto. I don't want to spend it. I want to wait till it's worth billions of dollars. But spending my money, I'm doing it through credit cards. I'm doing it through online transactions. I might write a check, for someone that doesn't take that stuff. Very rarely am I using cash. So obviously, I think governments are going to say, hey, get into dollar coin, and you can pay your taxes with dollar coin, and it's blockchain based, and it'll be, I guess, one that doesn't where they never actually fix the number of coins that are created, which is kind of funny to me. Like you're creating a garbage coin right off the bat. But if it's something that you have to use, then so I definitely see them getting into that. But in my mind, at that point, haven't we won? Because if they've conceded that the best way to that online currency is the way to go, then they can stop with all the crap about, oh, this is just for drug dealers and prostitutes on the Silk Road website or whatever. And then also there's this garbage. So it's like, okay, crypto is the best. We've already acknowledged it. And here's our coin, which sucks. So, I mean, at that point, haven't we kind of won?
I sort of think that we did win because I think they do know it finally. That's why we're seeing all these committee hearings and stuff in DC and all over the world now. It's every week it's like a new FUD story. Right. FUD for the newcomer also just means fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That's another like big crypto term you'll hear
FUD and FOMO.
Out. Yeah. And FOMO, fear of missing out. Right. So, but the FUD, they tried the FUD. And the FUD didn't work, and it's like if you can't beat them, try to steal their idea.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that will be interesting to watch because in my mind, this isn't going away. It's going to become like you said. It starts with money, but there's so many applications that it's going to be involved in, including literally applications, apps for devices and. Because of that, there's only so much they can do. Like you said, they can only create so much fear around it before, I guess, and maybe this is, I was not a very young kid, but I was young when the internet was first coming out. And I maybe there were people out there going, oh, the internet's just for hookers and drug dealers. Maybe it was the same thing. But that very quickly caught on. I mean, that's, I bought all this equipment we're looking at on Amazon on Prime Day, like, one store after the next is crumbling because they can't compete with, internet-based websites. And so, blockchain, in my mind, you've got something even more dynamic than the internet in blockchain that's competing against something even more undynamic and more, thieving and more inefficient and more diminishing in value than Toys R Us, which is the U.S. government or the Chinese government or whatever. Mm-hmm. Toys R Us at least gave you value, and when it couldn't anymore, it folded. Whereas the governments are essentially just robbing you until they can rob you some more, and if that doesn't work, they'll just print out more of the money they force you to use, which makes what they didn't rob you of go down in value. In my mind, you're taking one of the most inefficient scammy things on earth and putting it up against the most dynamic thing to come out of technology right now. I think it's impossible for that not to win, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, right now we know, since Roosevelt took us off the gold standard or confiscated. First they confiscated a lot of the gold. It was like $30. I believe when Roosevelt took us or confiscated the gold in 1933, it was like $30 an ounce.
Right.
And now, it's 1,300 or 12 something, whatever.
Right.
And then Nixon took us off the gold standard in like 1973 or something like that.
Right.
So, you can just see over time, it's like they chip away, chip away. And eventually it's just going to unravel completely. And I think we're really close to that maybe. So I think a lot of people, a lot of millennials specifically, I also touch on that in the book, are really interested in an alternative because we have, as you said, grew up with the internet.
Right.
A lot of us that were on the internet pretty much, I think I first got on the internet at like 11 years old maybe or something like that.
Right.
And I think I actually found my first web page I designed. It was an X page in 2001.
Right.
And so, I mean, Paul Krugman, and I think it was him who said that
It's a fax,
the internet is a fax machine. So the people who are still saying that Bitcoin is just used for nefarious things and illegal, illicit activities are just like, you're living in the past. You sound like Paul Krugman to the people who really know what's going on.
Well, that's the thing, and I love that Krugman quote because it wasn't even that long ago. He said that in like '02 or something. Like, I mean, the internet was
amazing.
I mean, it wasn't like I could see someone saying that in '94.
Yeah.
But he said that like well into, I want to say it was either late '90s or early 2000s. Like, buddy, at this, like, I mean, he was at a point. The internet was there was almost full saturation of internet usage, and we were approaching full saturation of broadband usage. And this schmuck's talking about, oh, it's going to end up being no more useful than the fax machine. I'm like, it's already more useful than the fax machine. Like, again, if that had been a quote from 1992, I'd roll my eyes. That was a quote from, that would be like someone in 2026.
I think it was 2002. I think
yeah,
you're right.
It was like way past when any person could legitimately claim these. Like, I mean, it was like it was absurd. Like, it was, e-commerce was already, the biggest single sector in the economy or something like that. And he's like, yeah, it's a fax machine. It would be, in my mind, it's like let's say it's 2030 and someone's going, yeah, cryptocurrency is going away. It's going to be like Pogs or something.
And that's where people get their news. They're getting in their news from the Paul Krugmans of the world. Like, I think he still has I don't read the New York Times. I'll probably never pick it up again. But those are the kind of people that are like writing for the New York Times. Like, how does that? I mean, that was 16 years ago or whatever. Now, how does that guy even have a job writing?
And that's the thing, like, because that's, I mean, everyone gets something wrong. That's a big one. That's a big one to get wrong. And I have to find out after this episode when it was, but it was.
I think you're right. It was like 2002. I think
way after when anyone could, even if it was mid to late 90s. You're way past saying the internet doesn't matter anymore, and yet he's still referred to as Pulitzer Prize winning respected economist Paul Krugman. And I'd be like, I would introduce him as the guy that said that the internet was going to be no better than the fax machine well after anyone could have reasonably said that. Even in the worst of the dot-com bubble bursting, it would be like if after the real estate burst, people said, no one's going to live in houses anymore. Houses suck. No one likes houses. Houses are going to go the way of the cave, and we're all going to live outside or what. Like, it's just insane. It's
pretty obvious who he's shilling for. I mean, he's definitely got a base of supporters he's looking out for.
Oh, of course. Well, and also his portfolio. I'm sure he's not well. Yeah. He wasn't well, or he had invested in the internet and was mad that Amazon had folded in '98 or whatever. That their stock went down, and he was upset about that. So that's funny to me. I have one more question for you, and then you obviously feel free to say whatever you want after that. So we've touched on when we think you don't have an exact date of when To the Moon is happening, but you definitely think it is going to happen, and I tend to agree with you on that. And whether it happens this year, next year, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever, it's definitely happening. Our audio got cut off a little with Bitcoin when we were talking about Bitcoin and its problems. So maybe you touched on this, but what do you think is going to be, what coin or coins do you think are going to be those leading coins that will, dominate the cryptocurrency world, at least in the near future when To the Moon happens? Do you think it's going to be Bitcoin or Litecoin or an altcoin that doesn't even exist yet? Or do you think it's going to be kind of a bourse of the top 10? Or, what do you think is going to happen there?
Well, when Bitcoin reached its dominance last year, the all-time highs of around $20,000.
Right.
BTC, Bitcoin dominance was around like 35, 33%, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. And it leads the market. So right now it's around 47%. It's gradually climbing back up. So that's another indicator to me that we are about to see we could possibly be seeing the beginnings of another bull run. This is not financial advice. But
always talk to your financial advisor before. Yeah.
But I don't want to be responsible for anyone like taking out a mortgage on their house or anything like that. But I do think that's a good indicator that we are heading back up. So the other, since Bitcoin has the strongest network, as far as it's been around 9 years. It's been tested. It's basically foolproof or whatever. Right. I think that it will be the leader in the near future. It just seems like it's going to be the one. Also, Ethereum and Litecoin. I'm pretty big on Litecoin. I think Litecoin working with Bitcoin on the Lightning Network is going to be huge. I think it'll end up being maybe the payment coin. Like if you're going to go get their creators, Charlie Lee, and it was the second cryptocurrency basically that came into existence, and it came into existence I think in like 2010 or 11, and I've been a pretty big proponent of it since its inception. So I've seen it too, and it seems to be Charlie Lee has a pretty good reputation in the community. And I think it'll end up being like the one where you go get a cup of coffee or you go out to eat and you end up using, or maybe you even get gas at the gas station or something like that.
Right.
It'll be the one that you use for like smaller transactions. And maybe if you're going to buy your Lamborghini or your yacht, you're going to go buy Bitcoin maybe. But Ethereum's another one that's interesting. Now, Ethereum doesn't have a fixed supply.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, but their creator is now saying that I had a little spat with him on Twitter once about a few things. But Vitalik Buterin, he's saying now he's not completely against the idea of them actually capping their supply.
Yeah.
So there could be a cap, which I think maybe somebody slipped him a few Austrian economics books or something over the last few years. He
had a spring Rothbard reading, and now he's doing it. Yeah.
He's pretty young. A couple other ones I'm interested in, and I think could end up being bigger. Neo's been dubbed like the Chinese Ethereum, so watch out for Neo. There's a lot of Asians that are interested in cryptocurrency as well. And Steam, I'm really interested in Steam, and the Steam blockchain is like a very interesting thing to me because I'm already seeing people post on Steemit, which runs on the Steam blockchain, and there's people all over the world feeding their families already on Steam, the Steemit website that runs on the Steam blockchain. So I think that was really the goal in the beginning of all of this. Like everybody wants to get rich, but we want to see people, have the quality of life. A good quality of life, and this is that's a great example right there.
Yeah, I love how, and this is human nature, right? Like this is, I mean, any Hayek, von Mises, anyone will touch on this, and I will give him credit. Even Marx touches on this a little bit in Dust Capital, but we went so quickly from we just want a way to sustain ourselves and have a good quality of life to I'm buying Lamborghinis. Like it happened. Yeah. It like literally, it's just funny to me because when Bitcoin went up to, $20 a coin, $80 a coin, $100 a coin, people are like, yeah, this is going to be real. And we can fight the, the oligarchy and fight the corporatist, fascist system that, the central bankers. And then it was like, so quickly, it was like, yeah, I'm getting an Aston Martin. I'm getting a Lamborghini. And it was like, man, that switch got pulled real quick. But the thing is, I mean, ultimately the profit motive is what drives it, right? But it was just funny how quickly the altruistic pretense behind some of it was like, we're all gonna be rich. Like it was just. But again, and I'm a huge fan. I am both an anarcho-capitalist and a Jew, so I am. Greed is good. I am very much Gordon Gekko with greed is good, or at least the profit motive is good. Greed being that you want to harm others to get money is not good. Wanting to make money is good, but I just find it hilarious that we went very quickly from like this is gonna change things for the better. We're gonna create a voluntary society to like, yeah, bitch, I can get a Lambo now. Like it's funny.
That's a good point that you made there because we're all greedy. Everyone is greedy. The idea like this Bernie Sanders, like these kids that are like 18 now, I don't know what the hell people are teaching these kids because, everybody is greedy. Everybody wants, to do better for themselves.
Right.
And this idea that we just need to tax the rich, like they're just like rolling around in cash at night and they're not putting their capital into like new great things that we're all going to use is like these people that are just like talking about how bad capitalism is and they're on their smartphone.
Right.
Like, where do you think that came from? Like
why do you think someone even made it? Like, because they'll say, because again, and I debate for some reason I debate weight. I should probably. My friend Eric July has said I'm much more productive now that I don't argue with leftists, and I haven't reached that point yet because I have probably maybe I have too much free time, but I have found that in debating with the left, some of them they'll make a good point. So I'll say, like you just said, you want to resist capitalism from your iPhone. And they'll say, well, that's the system that we're under, which first of all, we're not. We're in a corporatist system, not truly a capitalist one, but there are elements of capitalism that are allowed just enough for us to be robbed to pay for corporatism. But anyway, they'll say, well, that's the system we're under. So, I can't escape it. It's like saying that you're against the government, but still using roads. Okay. That's a good point. But why? Okay. There are communist societies out there. Why are we not using? Why are we not using their stuff
all day, Spike? I'll counter that argument all day. There's only one way to take your trip to the grocery store.
Exactly.
They have a monopoly on the roads.
Exactly.
This is the major difference between the state and versus capitalism. Capitalism, nobody forced you to get that cell phone.
Exactly.
You have not infinite, but you have hundreds of choices for cell phones to get.
Yep.
Go and try to find one that doesn't employ the division of labor.
Exactly.
You're never gonna find one. You would never find. You could spend the rest of your life just building the cell phone yourself.
Oh, that's the whole.
Yeah.
We had one of my guests, Paul Gordon, is he's not a anarcho-capitalist, but he's definitely in favor of a voluntary exchange system. He just doesn't like using that term for a myriad of reasons, not the least of which is that capitalism was actually coined by communists, so we're sort of using their term to describe ourselves or whatever. But anyway, he was talking about the breakdown of why they believe rent is theft and property is theft, and pretty much it boiled down to, okay, if you're a strawberry farmer and I know a bunch of people 1,000 miles away that want those strawberries, and I buy those strawberries from you and go there and sell them, I'm a thief because I made a profit on that. Unless I guess give you all of the money that I didn't use to live, to meet my most basic needs, which who decides what that is. But, if I keep any profit for myself, then I've stolen your labor. And I've stolen your labor, and I've also stolen the hardworking money. I've stolen the labor through trade of the people that I sold it to. And I'm like, okay, that's an awesome theory. How are they going to get those strawberries? You're busy farming. You know what I mean? It was just
exactly.
I'm like, how does this system even okay, great. You've created this narrative, and we can debate the narrative all day. Let's talk brass tacks. How does that even work? Right?
Can you imagine how boring the world would be?
Oh my gosh!
If we were all a lot of people. You could be for every equal opportunity, but
right.
Equal outcome. People that are calling for equal outcome, that's another red flag to me. These are the laziest people. They just want to they blame capitalist or voluntarist.
Right.
They don't really know much about voluntarism, I don't think, but
no.
They've been just conditioned to believe that profit is bad. Profit became an ugly term. They believe, the robber barons and all this stuff. I mean, Those people gave us what we have today. Without those people, we wouldn't be able to be communicating, so.
Right. I mean, using Amazon, I saw this ridiculous, and I want to say it was even Bernie Sanders, that if there's a senator that's going to share the worst leftist memes, it's Bernie Sanders. The left can't meme, but Bernie will share them. And he shared something about how Jeff Bezos is worth $150 billion or whatever it is, which means he could fix the water in Flint however many million times over, however many hundreds of thousands of times over. Okay, first of all, hey, thanks for bringing up an example of government incompetence that continues to this day, despite everyone knowing that it's going on, because there is no free market. There actually is a free market water alternative in Flint, which is people bringing bottled water, which is not efficient at all, but it's better than drinking lead-tainted water that you're forced to pay for by the Flint utility company if you live there. Putting that aside, Jeff Bezos doesn't have $150 billion sitting in a bank account somewhere. It's not like the Scrooge. Maybe I love Scrooge McDuck, but I'm also I'm Jewish and I like the idea of swimming through coins. Maybe it was DuckTales that has a
Yeah,
whole generation.
DuckTales, man.
I think he had, but maybe that has a whole generation of millennials thinking rich people have these giant vaults that they swim in their money or something, because they're like, he's worth $150 billion. How much of that is cash? I doubt much. Percentage-wise, like maybe he's got, I don't know. I mean, it's more than I got, but it's percentage-wise probably less than 1% of that is actually like sitting somewhere in an account. It's all tied up in investments that could go south at any time. And you know, all of that is just, he is bearing so much risk on himself and his investors in order for the promise of a profit to create, you know, I got all this equipment 2 days after I ordered it. Where's the government do? Yeah, like, I mean, the government will give me a potato a month after I starve to death. Why, you know, why would I? You know, it's amazing to me, but maybe it was DuckTales. I now think
these people, they truly are the great benefactors. Like I was trying to, you know, talk about with in the book. You know, I think that blockchain is going to create a new wave of these robber barons, what they would call robber barons. You know, these really, which are benefactors to humanity. You know, but people are going to have a better. You know, a better life because a better quality of life because of these people who can see in advance. You know, they put together land, labor, and capital,
right? Exactly.
And they create what we need.
Right.
You know?
They create value.
They're visionaries. Yeah. So, and what does the state do? You know, they force you at gunpoint to accept what these bad products or bad goods that people wouldn't accept if it was in a free market.
Right. I like the idea of repurposing the term robber barons for us to, like, sort of how we've taken the term capitalism.
Run with that.
This is going to be our thing. Like, I'm like, I am an aspiring robber baron. But let me explain what that means. You know, it's sort of like when I started this podcast, I was advised to, that's okay, my dog will be in here barking soon. I was advised to avoid saying, you know, anarchism and things like that. And I was like, no, I'm going to say it just to shock people, so that it starts a conversation, sort of the Trump school of marketing. I think that I'm now going to add robber baron to my portfolio. I'm an aspiring robber baron.
We should both do that. I like that.
I like that a lot. Since it seems
aspiring
like
robber baron.
Exactly. Before we go, since we had lost the connection before, and it looks like our connection's good now, I want to kind of revisit the question that I had asked about Bitcoin, which I now can't find. Oh yeah, there it is. And if our connection goes bad now, then clearly this is a central banking conspiracy that this question doesn't get answered, and we'll have to, like, you know, put it out in paragraph form or whatever. But you know, Bitcoin transactions especially at their peak, at peak value, became very slow and costly, especially when compared to the other altcoins. I remember at one point I was trading Bitcoin for another coin so that I could buy an altcoin. I think I was trading it for Ethereum or something so I could use it to buy an altcoin on one of the exchanges, and it took forever. It took like an hour and a half, and it cost like 2 or 3% of the transaction. Like it was very costly compared and very slow compared to the other altcoins. That's been a concern in the crypto community, that Bitcoin, because it's, I guess, older technology or whatever, that it's as it's being used more and more, it's becoming kind of slower and more costly. I know there's this thing called Lightning Network, which I can't really explain very well. Maybe you can, but it looks like they might be trying to work on this. But in the long run, do you see Bitcoin fixing this problem and staying, ahead of the curve on this stuff? Or do you think it's going to end up being an example of sort of like how with the internet, there was Prodigy and then America Online, where they were great innovators that dominated the market at one point, but they couldn't keep up with the times and went obsolete? Do you think that's going to happen to Bitcoin?
I'm hoping that Bitcoin figures it out. It seems like they're working on the scaling issue. That's all determined on block size and stuff.
Right.
A little bit more technical talk. Maybe we'll get into that next time. But I do think that Bitcoin will figure it out. They have a smart group of people around there. But that's Roger Vere's argument with Bitcoin Cash, that they didn't do a good enough job in advance with the scaling to use, like you said, the fees rose. And it became the network became kind of bogged down. So really, with Litecoin, I think they'll figure it out.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so. So, so tell me, so your book, Blockchain Project Renaissance. Tell our viewers how they can get a hold of that, because it's an amazing book. It's only 0.2 Litecoin, which is I think it was like $18 US or whatever.
Right now.
Yeah, it's a great book. I really encourage anyone listening to or watching this to go out and get it. What's the best way to get that?
I'm working with a couple websites right now, but they'll get a cut of that. So the best way right now is just to get a hold of me at Pittsburgh, PITTSBURGH, and then hodlr, HODLR, at gmail.com. Or you can get a hold of me on my Twitter at rbryer23, RBRYER23. And then I'm also, I mentioned Steam and the Steemit.com and the Steem blockchain earlier. That's a great place to get a hold of me. I love that forum and website. I'm on there at pittsburghhodlr. Same thing as the email. So
okay, cool.
Just HODLR is the after Pittsburgh. So I just want to emphasize that.
For the hodlers, yeah.
Yeah, that's another Bitcoin blockchain sort of nerd thing.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, and that was we didn't touch on that. That hodling is I guess at one point it's holding on to the coin. Someone had said, we need to hold, and they wrote it as hodl, so now everyone it spells it that way. So it's a very lingo heavy community. So
it is.
I wonder how much that has scared some people away. They look at it, they're like, I don't want to hodl to the moon, and I don't even know what that means.
There could be a few sentences where you don't understand anything that people are saying.
That's the thing. It's
like a foreign language or something.
Which is where your book. And again, this will. I guess I hopefully will have plugged your book sufficiently on this, because this is where your book is very helpful. Because when I was reading it, I'm like, man, if I had read this when I was trying to figure this out, I would have been so much more intelligent to talk about this, however many years ago than it took me a good year of Googling stuff before I could, go into a forum and ask a question without sounding like an idiot. So definitely, if anyone is interested in blockchain, even if you're not, if you're not interested in blockchain, I challenge you to buy this book so that you will become interested in blockchain. So there's
a lot of good economic stuff in there too.
Yeah, it's great. So if you are a human being who is breathing and listening to this, or watching it, really if you are accessing this in any form, get this book, Blockchain Project Renaissance. R.L. Bryer, thank you so much for hanging out with me and coming on my show, and we hope to have you on again very soon.
Spike, it was a pleasure. I really enjoyed this. We definitely have to do this again.
Absolutely. Stick around. I'm going to talk to you in a little bit.
All right, thanks.
Guys, I'm so happy that you joined me today. We had some technical difficulties that are going to get edited out in the uploaded version. But if you stuck around through the long haul on this live stream, I salute you and I thank you for it. And I hopefully my back will be in order by the next show, and I look forward to my back being okay. I didn't wince at all. Actually, I did wince once, and it did have to do with my guest. So that was a promise broken to you. So I apologize for that. But I thank you again for joining me, Spike Cohen, on My Fellow Americans. I can't wait to see you again next week, and I look forward to it. You guys have a great week, and thank you again for joining me.
text saying your homie died, an enemy or whatever. I mean, you know the guy. Imagine knowing all that started off that war was pride and lies. Be a man, hold it in your eyes. Take a look up in the sky and count the doves. I believe it's 23. Every breath is every step that I've been blessed to get to breathe. Rather let you rest in praises as opposed to rest in peace. At the least, that's just me being me. Convoluted as can be. In my future, I can view it so vivid and beautifully. The distances I will leap from the man that I used to be. But now, summer doesn't exist anymore. Best case scenario, I get to finish the tour. Then chill with the gust in August before I march and march again. Dayquil in April, I know how cold this art can get. My head hurting, I must have a lot on my mind. When I got time on my hands, they put hands on my time. My skin with my friends. In reality, you are my kin. Though I view the world through another's iris. If you slide in my kicks, it might fit. We might just unite and come together, become hybrid. At the least, slightly like-minded. Indeed, the life I've lived brings light to kindness. All you need is a sign. Put a cease to the crimes. Put an ease to the minds like mine. Sometimes darkness is all I find. You know what they say about an eye for an eye in a time when the blind lead the blind. Who am I to deny I would cry when a loved one dies? I recognize that body outside with the holes in the body that was alive. Now confined to a chalk outline. Find out how, but you never know why. It ain't even make it to the news at 9. It ain't even make it to the news at 9. That's my sister, mother, father, brother, son. That's one of mine. All these years I close my eyes, open up to only find I'm in line. There's a pointless murder